This is how New York homeless hostile architecture messes with New Yorkers. If you're wondering what this is all about, basically it's a design that you see in most big cities now or in subways called hostile architecture. That basically means that they would remove seats in subways or in train stations and anything they know if homeless people could sleep here and feel comfortable, they'll design it to put curves and sharp edges there that the homeless people would be unable to sit there. And that is what homeless architecture is all about. It is gotten so worse that now even seats that you would normally have in subways waiting for your train have been removed, and they put just little piece of wood that even it just makes it very uncomfortable for people using the subway. Anyway, so that is the problem. Now, so you're trying to solve one problem, creating another problem. And because of that, someone said, I was in New York over Christmas and New Year and was appalled about how few seating options there were in the city. This also applies to garbage cans and toilets. After walking through the city for hours, there was no seat in the Oculus either. So we sat down exhausted on the huge staircase leading to the path station. And guess what? A minute later, an officer appeared and told us to get up and, well, leave. So this is the other side of or trying to solve a problem where you have collateral damage, where you're trying to solve a problem and creating another one. And people are saying, look, we're paying to come and visit New York. We're paying for the subway, train stations. At least make it possible. So that's what some train stations have been doing. That if you have a ticket, then you go through control security, and then on the other side you'll be able to see it, but not even in New York, because even the subways, most people don't even pay. They jump and then they're there. So homeless people would likely do that. So they just said, we're just going to remove everything. And that's what's happening. So, but it's not only impacting the homeless. For example, it says that urban design strategy that uses elements of the built-in environment to guide or restrict certain behaviors in public space, such as sleeping, skateboarding, using illicit substances, urinating in public, and loitering. So those things is impacting all these public space users, skateboarders, and all these other things. And in some cases, they've even changed the lights in some of the toilets, public toilets, to make them very, like, they put red or some really strange things. Anyway, colors. And what the idea is that once you have that with the colors, the people who coming in with this syringe to try to shoot up drugs will be unable to do that because you can't see your veins. So I don't know if it's a good thing, because then you end up someone who's completely out of it will end up just killing himself in toilet, which is probably not a good thing either. Anyway, so that's what's been happening. And people are saying they're making New York feel like you're not welcome. It's no longer welcoming. The parks are not welcoming. Train stations, subways, and all these public places are making people feel unwelcome. Even the tourists are thinking the same thing. It doesn't really solve anything, hostile architecture. It doesn't solve anything. It's cruel and it's ineffective, because what's doing is that once you make it very uncomfortable for people to be in public spaces, they go elsewhere. Some go under the bridge. Some people have even gone into the train tracks, and they've been living beside the train, which can be also dangerous. Or they've even gone underground in some cities, like in the underground people of New York or Las Vegas. So you see all those things is that you're shifting the problem, and that is what why people actually criticize hostile design. You're not solving it, but you're shifting it. You're making it a sort of a, we don't want to see this problem. And if the people, homeless people, are no longer in the public parks, in public spaces, then it means we don't see them and the problem no longer exists. But you need to do that in order to maintain order, because the main hope of the hostile architecture is to ensure public safety. But critics says that argument is inhumane and targets the homeless. But then it's of course easier to defend the homeless than defend skateboarders. If homeless people started to sleep in the air vents, what they do is then they make the air vents with a design that's curvy with sharp edges, which make it very uncomfortable to sit, even sleep on that. So that is what they're doing. But now there is another side, the dark side of homelessness, and why some people actually agree and they actually support hostile architecture, because they're thinking, yeah, it's inconvenient for me to go to the subway without being able to sit, but it's safer, and I prefer it that way. I would rather have the inconvenience of being able to sit, standing up, my legs hurting, but not being in a situation where it might be dangerous because a mentally ill homeless person is in the subway. And so someone says, as a guy, I don't get yelled at, but when the wrong homeless person can be dangerous and aggressive. I got chased down a street once because me and some friends wouldn't buy weed off a homeless guy. Yeah, that is another thing that people actually talk about, that it can be awful when you end up with an aggressive homeless person or in the vicinity of a homeless encampment. Even with restroom facilities, a short 30 to 60 seconds walk from the encampment, we still end up with jugs of urine and mounds of feces on the ground, also needles and baggies and foil balls. So that is not encouraging because the facility is there. Why aren't people using it? But then when people with mental illness are in a different state of mind, you know, cleanliness is not a priority, and that is not good. Another comment says, many people do not actually want their communities turned into lawless encampment of filth, disease, drug abuse, mental illness, and crime. If you enable if you enable and facilitate bad behavior like making poor life choices, refusing to work, forming unwanted homeless communities, then you will encourage more of it. If you don't allow it to begin, then you stop it from becoming a large problem that's even harder to solve. It's easier to approach an individual and advise them that you cannot live here on this bench. This is used by the public. Here are some places that can help you. Then wait until you have 300 people living there and try to get them out, which is another valid point. But okay, I think when people talk about it, a lot of emotions and confusion about the reality of homelessness. America, as a rich country, could do a better job with homelessness. It's a fact. But of course, they're not interested because, yeah, it's just the way things are. The way the system is designed also contributes to homelessness, where someone living paycheck to paycheck misses a paycheck and then ends up on the street. And there have been cases of people who actually have jobs and they still live on the street. They live in their car, and then they make it very difficult for someone who's living in his car with a job to get out of that entrapment. So it is very difficult. Anyway, the two sides have valid points. First of all, that if you allow homelessness in public space without hostile architecture, the place just goes down the drain, which is a valid point. And then the other argument is that it is also cruel, which is another valid point, that it is cruel and inhumane to do that. But if you're not addressing the bigger picture of the disparity in the way we treat the poorer people who then fall into homelessness or addiction, which is something also that contributes to homelessness, and then a lot of people who come from broken families, and then that contributes to homelessness because some people have been abused at home and they run away and they don't have any skills to get jobs, and then it just spirals out of control. So all this is the debate is out there, but the interesting thing here is that even non-homeless people who are just working, going home, are still impacted by the hostile design, and there is no solution basically.